10 tips to pass your driving test that always work. Many hundreds of people who took this advice passed the driving test without any difficulty whatsoever. Number one tip is to be familiar with procedures of driving assessment. Wherever you are in the world, you've got to be familiar with procedures. If you don't know which exercises form part of every driving assessment, you're probably not going to pass. This is the case with most people, but especially with people who have licenses from overseas. They'd be thinking that they can drive, they've been driving for many years, but when they come for the test, they simply can't perform well because they don't know what they're marking them on. Number two is lack of driving days leading to the driving assessment. So if you are really determined to pass your driving assessment, I personally suggest that you drive at least 10 days consistently, at least an hour a day, preferably in the area of your driving assessment, so you will know the area really well. A lot of people don't know the streets, For example, they live in one part of the city and they go to the other part of the city and they simply underperform and as a result lose too many points or fail immediately on some major points. Number three is don't only do easy stuff. So you got to do difficult stuff. You have to merge and change lanes as many times as possible. Set the rule when you're going for your driving lessons that you change lanes at least 10 times, that you merge at least 5 times, that you go through different types of roundabouts at least twice or 3 times. And that way you're going to be much better prepared to take your driving test. Number 4, make sure that you speak to your supervisor, your driving instructor or your private supervisors and ask them if they feel comfortable with your driving, your general driving. And also ask them to be honest if they believe you would pass your driving assessment. A lot of times people get offended if we tell them, look, we don't believe you will pass if you do your test tomorrow. And if we've still got 7 days before your driving test, you've still got plenty of time. Even if you drive half an hour a day in the area, you'll be much better prepared. So think of any advice as constructive criticism rather than, being offended about, the fact. Usually the fact that you would not be able to pass if you did the test the next morning. Number 5, don't associate any negative thoughts with your driving assessment. A lot of times people tell us that, they were trying to imagine how it would be sitting with the examiner inside of the car. What would they look like? What would they sound like? So that's completely wasted energy. So you shouldn't really be thinking about it. What you can visualize is how you do things to the best of your ability, with ease, with joy, how you drive well, and visualize yourself, changing lanes if that's your weakest link. Because if you try to imagine what the examiner looks like and what will they sound like, will you understand the way they speak and all of that, it'll be the same as if you're trying to imagine how the person that you hear speaking on the radio looks like. So I'll tell you one thing, you'd be 100% wrong. Secondly, but more importantly, it doesn't really make any difference whether you're going to pass your driving test or not. Number 6 is don't tell your friends that you're going for your driving assessment. What's going to happen if you announce that you're doing something very important? That's going to create unnecessary pressure on you. So, try to limit exposure of what you're doing. And, it's easy to break the good news once it happens. If you pass, you can tell everyone that you're going tomorrow, but then tell them, hey, I passed, and you show them the picture. I mean, I'm not asking you to lie, but, whatever you do, try to limit sharing with people what you're doing because that is important. And a lot of learner drivers who fail their driving tests, they regret sharing with everyone that they were going to take their driving assessment the next day or, in the next 2 days or something. Number 7, if you are not used to getting up really early, avoid doing a driving test very early in the morning. So if you usually get up at about 10, don't book a driving assessment that starts at 7 a.m. If you decided to take an early driving test, please make sure that you have at least 7.5 hours sleep the evening before. We have the video on the channel on sleep cycle and how you can optimize, so check that out. Number 8, have a long driving lesson on the day of your driving assessment just before the driving test. We usually suggest at least about 90 minutes, but even if it's 2.5 hours, 3 hours with a few breaks, you want to sort of, have a cup of coffee or something, stretch your legs, so you can't overdo it. So longer the session before your driving test, the better results are. So I can tell you that from our 23 years of experience in this industry. Number 9, make sure you can park. Nobody passes driving test if they can't park. So, they will ask you reverse parking, some places reverse parallel parking. Even if the driving test centre is known, for not sort of doing reverse parallel parking, they do have right to pull you over on the side of the road and ask you to do the reverse parallel park. By the way, it is great to know how, and it's not difficult at all. So if you can't park, you will certainly not be able to pass your test. You might be lucky to only park forward. It does happen sometimes, but parking forward is, sometimes a bit of a task as well, especially if you're parking in between the two cars, if it's a narrow gap. So, make sure that you practice on reverse parking on both left and the right-hand side, and, even reverse parallel parking on both sides. Ask your instructor if you would pass your low-speed manoeuvres. That includes, in Australia, obviously, we've got the exercise left something behind. So that is where the examiner will put you under the microscope the most, because everything happens slower and there's more things to do, so they would judge you for looking, signalling, flow, movement, path, responsiveness and vehicle management in every single section, including the low speed manoeuvre sections such as stopping for shopping and exercise left something behind in Australia. Number 10 is make sure your car's roadworthy, because if you turn up for your test, if you're using a private car, guess what? If your tyres are bald, they're not going to take your car. They're going to decline your car, and you're going to have to pay for the extra entitlement to book another driving assessment. Make sure that your tyres have at least 1.5 millimeters depth in thread on every part of every tyre that touches the road. So minimum 1.5 millimeters. So that's the minimum legal. Your indicators must work. Okay, they check it literally just before the actual test, and your stop lights. And obviously, if there's some visible defects such as windscreen wipers hanging or something, so make sure your car's presentable, and also give it a nice vacuum and clean. Just make sure, if you're using a private car, make sure it's presentable, and obviously that the assessor feels comfortable in that car, rather than have your front seat full of rubbish and stuff like that. So it's best to do a little sort of preparation, including, of course, checking your lights and, your seat belts and the windows and if your tyres are legal. Imagine if you're ready to pass a driving assessment and you show up with a car that they decline. That would be a total disaster. I hope that this set of info will make your life easier, that you're going to pass your driving assessment as a result of, understanding what you should do to optimize your chances of passing. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.